panel is going to be on Urad. And we have Anant Chaje from Myanmar and Mr. Lalit Pant from India. Anant is based in Myanmar and serves as the country head at Swiss Singapore Overseas. He has 19 years of diversified trading experience across commodities such as fertilizers, sulfur, coal, steel, petroleum products, and agricultural products such as pulses, rice, and maize, and is responsible for a multi-million-dollar budget to deliver results. Anant also serves as the Vice President of WOTA Myanmar. Lalit is a postgraduate from Symbiosis University, is a pulses trader at Vetera, India. And he started out with cotton, eventually moving to pulses, and has been a part of commodity trading for the last 10 years. Mr. Pant is a core member of the team at Vetera, India, that is responsible for developing the company's interests in pulses milling and marketing of finished goods. So without much ado, I'd like to transfer the mic to Mr. Anant for his presentation on India. Anant, before you come, I'd just like to announce that we have 187 attendees at the moment live with us from over 12 different countries. So thank you so much. Over to you.
Hello. Hello. Am I? Okay. Thank you. Good evening to all our viewers who have logged in from different geographies, different places in India, Africa, Myanmar, all the trade stakeholders. And thanks, Vatsalji, for the generous introduction. So I'll straight away start with my presentation. Yeah, next slide, please. About Myanmar, it has already been covered in the previous presentation, but what I like to highlight here, Myanmar remains an agricultural based economy with most of the labor force, around 70%, being engaged in agricultural activities. It is the largest exporter of beans and pulses in Asia. So this is a very striking fact. And second one is that Myanmar has the largest agri-ecological land area in continental Southeast Asia. So a lot of potential is there in the Myanmar agriculture to grow. When we talk about, increasing production for the required pulses, so there is a huge potential available. Then Myanmar also, it shares its borders with India and China, and both of these countries are the largest pulses consumers in the world, as we know. That's all. Rest, I think it has been discussed. Next slide, please. Black mape or urad, it is pretty versatile and it is consumed in multiple forms in India. It can be consumed as a split, can be boiled, roasted, or it can be ground to make flour. Is a rich source of protein, carbohydrates, phosphoric acid, and calcium. It is consumed across India, finding its way in any standard vegetarian Indian meal. And India is the largest producer of black mape, and interestingly enough, is also the largest importer and consumer in the world. Next slide, please. Here I have tried to capture and give an idea to our viewers which are the major growing areas, growing regions of black mape in Myanmar. Urad is mainly grown in the delta region of Myanmar. If you see in the map, the delta region is highlighted with a gray and black color. This is the main growing region for black mape. Almost it covers 95% of the crop which comes in Myanmar. And the whole delta region is the region accompanying, it's surrounding Yangon. Ayeyarwady and Bago divisions, as we see in the map, they contribute to over 95%, with the key growing centers as Hindara, Mobin, Nyongdon, P, etc. Urad is mainly sown in the post-monsoon winter season, and it is harvested in the months of January, February, and March. So the harvest is yet to begin. Actually, we had an early crop in December, and now we are just waiting for the arrivals to begin for the new crop of 2023. Average production period for urad is 3 to 4 months, which is quite fast, and it is much less than rice, which is the main staple and mostly grown crop in Myanmar. We have seen some early crop of urad, as I mentioned. Raw urad is processed and sized to make two varieties mainly, that is FAQ and SQ. Next slide, please. Coming on to the numbers, for which I think most of our viewers must be waiting. So I will run you through the slide. For the year 2022, we had opening stock of around 45,000 metric tons. Production last year, that is 22, was 675,000. Exports 650,000, and balance we are expecting 70,000 tons in is the carryover stock. Talking of the next year, that is 2023, the new year, production we are expecting around 800,000. So I'll also explain why this 800,000. There are two major factors which really gave us this positive number. One is the weather run up to the harvest. So this year the weather has been pretty good in Myanmar, with almost no disturbances which could impact the quality of the crop. So we are expecting a good amount of sowing, even if it is reasonably sown as last year. The production is going to be higher. And second most important factor here is the crop has not got any disturbance in terms of the weather, and also the sowing has increased. The acreage has increased this year. So that is also one factor which we have to consider. Exports we are expecting around 780. It's just an estimated number because the crop has not started yet, but I just have put a number for the viewers to consider, and balance carryover whatever 90,000 it should be ideally. The announcement again of the OGL until 2023 and then extension by the Government of India. These proved to be very positive steps which have helped enhance the production of urad and tur, as we saw in the presentation earlier. More consistent import policy from Indian government, it will help increase production in Myanmar. So that's all from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anant. We have a few questions for you. Can you walk us through your method as to how you arrived at the crop numbers? Because, there's always this thought in people's mind, and I saw a question from one of the viewers also, that he says there's a mystery as far as what the production numbers are, what the stock available in Myanmar at any point in time is. So can you throw some light on this so that it gives confidence to people on how the numbers have been accounted for?
Sure, Vatsalji. Mainly to assess the crop, we have discussions with people on the ground at the district centers. The district centers are the major mandis in the growing regions in Myanmar. Then we also discuss with the key traders, local stockists in Myanmar, to arrive at an average number. So we have to take the lower and the higher than a mean of that number to arrive at the best estimate of crop which can be harvested in Myanmar as a best estimate on a worst scenario basis. So that is how we arrive at the number. All this is done to have a holistic view of the crop availability on best endeavor basis, as I mentioned. So this year, weather run-ups to the harvest, it has been very good. So that also is a factor needs to be considered in our estimation. And the change in acreages has been a major factor as well. So there is a lot of crop substitution towards MAPE in Myanmar that we have seen.
Okay, Anand, thank you for that answer. The other question that we have for you is, what do you estimate the SQ percent to be in the new Delta and the Bago crop? And I ask this question because now it has been well accepted that higher the SQ content, better is the crop in terms of quantity and quality.
Sure. Given the favorable weather conditions this year, Vasalji, the farmers are expecting higher yields in MAPE overall across Myanmar. But although when we talk about SQ percentage, it depends on the crops from region to region. So, there can be a lot of complex scientific factors involved when we try to determine what is the reason of difference. But on an average, we are expecting 40 to 45% average SQ percent this year in the crop.
Okay, thank you for that. And lastly, most important question, which I think everybody is waiting for. Where do you see the prices for Feb March on a CNF Chennai basis, both for FAQ and SQ?
Sure. So actually, February mid onwards, we will see the arrivals to start in Urad. Some arrivals will start by next week. So when I am saying February mid, that is, they should start to pick up from that time. There is an insignificant forward trade in Urad so far. So we have not seen too much of Urad being booked as it was the case in tour. So prices will be driven mainly by demand from India. So if they have enough stocks, they can wait for the new crops to come in, or they want to buy all on a spot basis. So that will all mainly depend on how India is placed currently. Expecting a bigger crop than last year, obviously, our best expectation is that price will remain range bound. So that is what I expect. On a FOB basis, I will share it should be in the range of 700 to 710 on a lower side and 750 to 760. So in FAQ on FOB basis, FOB Yangon. And likewise in SQ, it should be around 810, 820 levels to 860, 870. So MAPE, most likely our reasonable estimate is that it will remain range bound, and we don't see too much of a very high volatility this year in the prices.
Anand, thank you so much. Now I'm just looking at the tab for the questions and answers. I don't see anything for, okay, there are a few questions. What is the crop size which comes out? What is the crop size of MAPE which comes out in December? This is one of the questions that has been asked of you.
It's a very small size. It's quite insignificant. It's around 30 to 40,000 metric tons as per our estimate. That's the early sowing crop, basically, which comes from the upper Myanmar regions. It is not from the Bago and the Delta region.
And is the quality very similar to Bago and Delta, or there is some sort of a difference?
No, quality is quite inferior. I mean, when you compare the two, so Bago obviously is the mainstay. That's the main crop, and that is very good in quality compared to this upper Myanmar crop. And the main differentiator in the quality being the brown seeds percentage. So the brown seeds, once the percentage goes high, it adds to the stickiness of the crop. So it's not preferred by the millers in India particularly.
Okay, and last question for you. Somebody has asked, Anand sir, what could be the price trading range for the next 6 to 9 months?
6 to 9 months is it's a fairly big period to estimate when we don't have the crop arrivals starting in Myanmar as yet. Mainly, it will depend on the Indian demand, as I say, because in pockets, how India stands, the Indian millers stand in terms of cargo availability. That is the key factor, because if they don't have much cargo at the ports, in the warehouses, in pipeline, that leads to a sudden rush in prices. And once again, when the arrivals are there at Chennai port, we have seen the prices cooling off immediately. So these factors will obviously determine the prices in the long run. But as far as my estimate is concerned, we have a very good crop at hand in Myanmar, and that will suffice the needs of Indian imports if we don't see any unpleasant situation arising during the period.
Okay, Anand, thank you so much. Fantastic presentation. And I'd like to bring in Mr. Lalit Pant now to give his presentation on the Indian demand and supply. Over to you, Lalit. Thanks, Anand.
Hello to viewers from all over the world. Regards to the officials from government who have taken time to join us for this. Best wishes to OATA to organize this webinar and stress on the point on how much important the relationship between India and Myanmar is with respect to tour and MATPE. So I'll just begin my presentation. shared by a lot of people in this webinar that pulses is actually one of the most underrated uh, items in the whole grains basket. And out of that, black matpe happens to be one of the most rich in terms of minerals, vitamins, and essential minerals, which kind of help your body in increasing, gut health, heart health, bone health, and many other areas in which you gain nutrition from. Matpe is also one of the key pulses which is used in cooking of South Indian food, especially idli, dosa, vadas, and also one of our favorite dals, which is the dal makhani. So you can say that matpe is one of the most versatile crops or one of the most versatile dals which the Indian kitchen has and adds so much value and flavor in our lives. I'll just start with explaining a brief scenario of the situation in India. We have matpe growing in two seasons, the Kharif and Rabi season. In Kharif, mostly the crop is grown in the northern and central part of India, being the lion's share of Kharif crop and about 45% of the Kharif portion. During this Kharif season, the central belt is the one which is actually rich and in surplus of the production, and that is the time when this crop is supplied to northeastern, northern, and southern part of the country. The southern part of the country, which is about 20% of the population of the entire country, is actually the highest per capita consumption of matte, and the total five states put together is about 45% of the consumption of black matte. On the right side, the map you see is of the Rabi portion, which is 30% of the total country's crop. This crop is mainly grown between Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu, which is nearly 85 to 90% of the total Rabi crop. And almost entirely, this entire crop, which is similar to SQ varieties, consumed within the southern states itself. In between, there is also the Zayed crop, which is estimated to be around 80,000 tons, comes in late summer. And there are also, smaller crops which are grown across the country, which kind of keeps adding to the overall availability throughout the year. So, in a nutshell, it is basically during the Kharif portion when the central India supplies to the South India, and during the Rabi portion when the central India and the North India is at a deficit of production. That is the time when Myanmar imports keep adding to the supply to the country. That is why you see a lot of volatility in the matpe market across the year. This graph shows you the government estimates on Urad production. What I have done is taken the first advanced estimate of the Kharif portion which is available, and I have added the average of last 5 years of the Rabi portion, and my number has come to 2.7 million tons versus a 2.84 million tons last year. This estimate is about 5% down from the previous year. Our internal studies also suggest that around 7 to 10% production, less production is likely during this year. I have made this chart which shows you the monsoon on the monsoon. Top left, you have a graph which shows you the district-wise weekly rainfall departures from normal. In a nutshell, what you see is that the UP belt, which is East UP, consisting of districts like Unnao, Lalitpur, Jhansi, Mahoba, these districts received much lower than normal rainfall during the cultivation cycle, and Unfortunately, it was met by extremely high rainfall during the first 2 weeks of September. Luckily, our farmers were in anticipation of this heavy rainfall, and there was early harvest of the crop in UP this year. The left bottom chart is showing you the rainfall, district-wise rainfall for Rajasthan, wherein you see that for a lot of weeks in July, the rainfall in a lot of districts was much higher than normal. Again, followed by at least two such weeks in August, then a very dry second half August, and an extreme floods in Pakistan. That same rainfall system went through Rajasthan and created a lot of problems for the matpe crop and hampered the overall size and the quality of parameters also. On the right hand side, the top graph is showing the districts in MP, which is again extremely radical, non-favorable rainfall for matpe crop. And the one below shows you Maharashtra, which again wasn't the most ideal of situations. What I'm trying to say is that it's not as if the crop was at a complete disaster, something like what happened in 2019 when it was nearly 40% wiped off. But it has these kind of differential weather patterns have caused nearly 30 to 40% as per trade estimates, 30 to 40% of crop to have poorer quality than normal. This chart shows you the price action over the last 5 years. We have seen that during 2017 and 2019, there was a lot of surplus in terms of production, which is why the crop largely traded around 20 to 30% below the MSP. And during 2020, 2021, and last year, we have seen that due to good demand, distilled above the MSP levels, showing you that the MSP of 60, 63 is also a very good return to the farmer, as well as there is definitely good demand at this level from the consumer as well. This year, the current prices are about 5 to 7% lower than MSP. I am talking about the FAQ variety. Last year's low had gone down to 56,000 for the FAQ quality. From current levels, we feel that there could be a further downside of 5 to 7%, but nearly 10% below the MSP level, which is 66%, the market should should form a very good bottom for the prices to rally in the future. This price chart is slightly closer. This shows you the last 1 year's activity, and right now, as I said, there is incredible amount of imports from Myanmar, but also on the other side, the Indian market is kind of hand to mouth. There is not a lot of carry in the market, which is why all the imports are easily lapped up by the consumers and going directly into production and consumption. This is as per a government study. The consumption share that you see, we have kind of established that the southern states are the ones which are rich in production of matpe, and despite a 20% share in population, they are nearly 45% of the entire country's consumption, telling you that the southern states or the South Indian food is much rich in matpe, and months a year. On the right hand, imports that we have had primarily from Myanmar. There is no other source for black matpe. We've had an exciting last 3 years of imports from Myanmar, and given the various opinions of a crop of nearly 700 or 700,000 tons or more from Myanmar, we can expect nearly 85 to 90% of that crop to make its way into India. We have a very similar supply and demand situation in India this year, and going forward, the only thing that could add more crop to come into India is the crop which usually goes into Sri Lanka and Pakistan. That share could reduce and probably find its way into it as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lalit. Fantastic presentation. You've put the whole thing in detail: the rainfall, the consumption, the production in India. Now we have a few questions for you. We see a lot of concentration of shipments to Chennai. Can you tell us whether buyers in Delhi and the northern states of India, whether they find it conducive enough to receive shipments out of Chennai? Over to you.
Vatsalji, we have seen that this is actually a more of a behavioral aspect than just a supply and demand situation. A couple of years back, the Chennai market used to trade, much lower, but because of that was just because of the freights. Today also, the inland freight will actually be able to balance itself by way of demand, and the outbound freight will also be able to balance itself by way of demand.
Lalit is having some bandwidth issues, so Vatsalji, if you can.
Okay, so let me go back to Mr. Manor Bhojwani if he is there. Are you there, Manor? Because there was a question that was there for you, which we were not able to ask. Manor, are you there?
No, I think he has logged out.
Yeah.
Probably
Vatsalji,
lost
can
his
you hear me
connection.
back?
Okay,
Yes,
so
I think Lalit is back, Vatsalji.
Lalit is back.
yeah, Lalit, carry on.
Sorry, I don't know till where my voice was audible, but I was just saying that buyers preferring Chennai as the port is more of a behavioral issue than anything, because the price differences, the shorter voyage time, the difference in the inland freights, that all can be absolutely adjusted by way of the supply and demand situation.
I think we have lost him again.
But I think Chennai is more conducive environment for trading with Asians, which is why a lot more people are preferring Chennai as the import port over Mumbai.
Okay, understood. Now, the next question for you is, there is a lot of talk regarding consumption of pulses in India actually having dropped on a per capita basis. Can you throw some light on this?
Yes, we've also noticed this pattern over the last few years. I would like to throw some numbers at the audience. We've observed that the food service market has been growing at a CAGR of about 11%, and it is touted to grow at that rate till 2028. The quick service restaurants growth is touted to be around 23% CAGR between 2020 and 2025, and thereafter a CAGR of 11%. Now, why I say quick service restaurants is because these are the restaurants which consist of brand like McDonald's, Pizza Hut, Domino's, Burger King, and the likes. And the fact that if you just take any of their menu cards, you would not be able to find a lot of items which are made out of pulses. And come to think of it, the more number of people in urban India step into a McDonald's and replace that meal with a burger rather than eating at home, they are kind of saying goodbye to that. All in all, every meal that is will reduce the consumption of pulses. Also, the annual spending on outside food has doubled in tier 2 and tier 3 cities in India in the last 2 years. There is a systematic rise in urban population in India versus the rural population. We have come to nearly 65% rural population as of today. And you also see the online food delivery market, which is also growing at nearly 20% CAGR every year. And these are also, cuisines wherein there is a sort of a, they are non-pulses rich cuisines, which the urban India or the young India likes to order online. Although there is sort of a silver lining, especially for Matpe, because we've seen that we've got a lot of people stepping out to eat their meals, and 80% of the population which does not live in South India is kind of moving towards consumption of South Indian cuisine. And this rise in South Indian cuisine, which is primarily rich in black Matpe, also tells you that black Matpe consumption might be the only pulses which is increasing year on year by around 2-3%.
Okay, thank you so much. But do we have some precise numbers in terms of per capita consumption or the various pulses, or that's a little far-fetched at this point?
There was a study which the government used to do. It was on the lines of the census study. It used to be called the intake study, and also the consumer spending study, which they did last in 2012, and the 2017 reports were not published because of some reason. If that study is done in line with the census study, it usually is done on a sample size of 40 lakh households, and that could probably give you a good idea onto per capita consumption patterns. I have used an older study in 2000 consumption of all the states, but per capita number would be a hard one right now unless a very wide, detailed study is conducted, like the one by the government.
Okay, thank you so much. And the last question for you is, at what rate do you think large traders and MNCs shall enter the Matpe market for ownership through the season? What are the price that you think will entice them?
I can't, a price level in and around the MSP, or maybe 5 to 10% below the MSP for the FAQ equivalent should be a good price. Vatsal ji,
We lost you a little bit over there. Can you just repeat it, because we were not able to hear you at all?
I was just saying that, I won't be able to speak for the industry, but, just a generic comment is probably around 5 to 10% below MSP would be a safe level to enter. And that is where I see most of the longs creating this season. But the situation is pretty much similar to last year in terms of demand and supply, and we could see a very similar price move this year also, given everything goes normal.
So if you were to translate that into dollars per metric ton CNF Chennai, what sort of a number would that ballpark be?
I would say around 730, 740 would be my best guess.
Okay, thank you. This is for FAQ, of course.
Yeah.
Now, Lalit, I have a question, and this question is basically on behalf of the various Myanmar suppliers for Tour. I know this was a question that I should have asked Manohar, but he is sort of logged out. Can I ask you if you don't mind? And the question is that we saw a lot of Myanmar shipments come down drastically after the Africa crop started last year. Of course, the price difference was high, which is probably one of the reasons. But we also heard that in certain areas of India, many of the millers have no option but to run their plants on Myanmar lemon. Can you walk us through this phenomenon? Because Myanmar suppliers who are listening in are very interested as to why, in spite of a price difference being as high, there were some people who possibly would have no option but to run lemon. Over to you. Are you there?
Vatsalji, I'm question again.
Okay, so the question was, last year in the month of August, when the Africa crop for lemon started, a lot of the shipments out of Myanmar sort of came down because of the huge price difference. But at the same time, we were hearing that a lot of millers, especially in Maharashtra and the central part of the country, would only run on lemon, irrespective of what the price difference be. So Myanmar suppliers, they are a little intrigued by this, and they would like to know as to what really happens in terms of the thinking of the millers in India. Can you just walk us through that? Are you there?
Am I? I'm unable to hear you. Are you referring to tour suppliers from Myanmar not being able to sell during the African arrivals? Is that right?
Yeah. So the exports had come down, but still we had a fair amount of business at that time. And
Yeah.
the reason being given was that some millers had no option but to run on lemon because of whatever reason. So can you tell us as to what those reasons could be?
Yes. So from what we observed in the market last year, the a lemon crop is pretty much comparable to the domestic crop in India, and around uh, August September last year, we saw that the Indian crop stocks were at an all-time low. This was also because last year's domestic tour crop is actually was actually hit by a fair margin, which was acknowledged by the trade and by the government and from various sources. Due to this, the people who run the lemon or the domestic crop, which is a similar size crop, will have to always rely on that crop. There is a absolutely different market for the millers who are running the African crop, in which the size is much bigger, and usually it would take almost a month for them to complete the milling cycle and then switch over to the bigger size crop, which is why you would see, if I were running domestic and I would not find domestic at a reasonable price, the only other option for me is to move on to lemon.
Okay, understood. Thank you so much. With this, we come to the end of the Urad panel discussion.